I've been doing YouTube for nearly a decade now, and over the course of my career, I've heard all sorts of advice tossed around. Some of this advice dramatically reshaped the way I thought about the YouTube algorithm, but some of it, looking back, was just complete nonsense. And what better way to structure a video with a list of bad, mid, and good things than a tier list? Let's get into it. We're going to start things off with F tier. And this tier is for the truly terrible advice. Advice so bad that following it will hurt your channel. And there's not going to be too many things in this tier. Most advice is at least applicable in some niche cases, or at least is at the very worst just a waste of time. But the stuff in this tier is worse than that. It will mess with your analytics. It will derank your videos in the algorithm. Don't follow the advice here. But to start us off, we have, you should delete bad, old, or underperforming videos. So this is disastrously bad advice, but to fully explain why, let me give you a quick rundown on how the YouTube algorithm works. This will, of course, be massively simplified, but to be honest, the core concept is really not all that complicated. The YouTube algorithm works by comparing viewers' watch histories and looking for patterns. So the most basic pattern would be something like this. Viewer 1 gets on YouTube and gets shown a random selection of videos on their homepage. They watch videos B, D, and G. Viewer 2 gets on YouTube and watches videos B, D, and G. Viewer 3 gets on and watches videos B and D, and then logs off for the night. YouTube is going to put video G onto viewer 3's recommendations front and center the next time they log on, because it noticed the pattern that people who like videos B and D also tend to like video G. There are, of course, hundreds if not thousands of additional variables, but all of those additional complexities layer on top of that core concept, patterns of viewership. YouTube calls this co-watch behavior, and it is the main driving force behind the recommendation algorithm. If you can understand that concept, you can probably follow my rationale for basically every tip in this video. So the reason that deleting old videos is bad for growth is that it also removes that data from your viewers' watch histories, which means there's less of a pattern for YouTube's algorithm to pick up on to use to push your videos to new people. Now, of course, there can be genuinely good reasons for deleting an old video. If you, accidentally doxed yourself and included some sensitive information, yeah, probably don't just leave that up for strangers to see for your own safety. But in general, it's a bad idea. And if you really just don't like your old videos and want them gone for reasons of taste, that's okay too, I suppose. You can also just unlist them, which won't remove them from people's watch histories, but that also means that if they want to watch it, they can just go back through their watch history and find it. So it's not a good solution for really sensitive information, but if you just don't want it to show up on your channel, it does work. I'm personally of the opinion that it's a good thing to let audiences go back and see how much you've grown as a creator. But I understand that not everyone can stomach the cringe of their teenage self. But if you're just deleting it because it didn't get the view numbers you wanted, you're making the problem worse, not better. I actually know a few YouTubers who delete low-performing videos to make sponsors think that they hit higher view counts more consistently than they actually do, so that they can use that data to negotiate a higher rate. But this is playing with fire in my opinion. And second in F tier, we have the advice, all engagement is good engagement. I think everyone who thinks about this for more than a second knows it's not true, but still, every so often, I'll see a creator going back and forth bickering with one of their fans, and they'll invoke this as a sort of attempt to reframe the whole interaction as like a gotcha. Like the viewer will be criticizing or insulting some aspect of the creator's video, and the creator will counter, "Aha, I got you. You see, you thought you were damaging my reputation by insulting me, but actually, you've just given me more engagement, boosting my influence even further. Ha ha ha, joke's on you." But this is usually, frankly, a pathetic attempt to stop people from criticizing them. But still, there are some people who earnestly believe this. I've even heard of a few creators who will include one or two spelling mistakes on purpose in order to generate more engagement in the form of comments that are correcting them, thinking that that is helping their recommendations reach more people. It's just not. I don't know how else to say it, but the people who literally designed the YouTube algorithm have said as much. It doesn't work, don't do it. Now, of course, if a creator posts something that's so bad that the badness of it becomes a spectacle in and of itself, that can override the negative effects of negative engagement. But even in those cases, usually the big winners in that scenario are going to be the commentary channels that farm that misfortune for views. That's honestly the only advice I've heard which I do think actively hurts your channel's ability to rank highly in recommendations. Let's move on to D tier. This tier is for advice which I don't think actively hurts your channel, but can indirectly hurt it by nature of just being a complete waste of time. This is going to be a pretty packed tier because honestly, most of the advice that I hear as a creator falls into this category. First in D tier, we have you should post at specific times or days of the week. For like 99% of YouTubers, this just doesn't matter at all. Now, sure, if most of your audience is American and you post at 3 a.m. Eastern Time, or you post during the Super Bowl, or you post during Christmas morning, yeah, the amount of people who are immediately dropping everything to go watch your video is going to be lower. But if a viewer likes your videos, they're going to see it the next time they open YouTube. And in fact, your video already being up and ready to watch when they sit down at their desk for the first time to start their day might actually play in your favor. It might not be good for their productivity, but still. The point is, in the long run, a video is going to get about the same amount of views that it would have no matter what time it was uploaded. So don't stress about it. Unless you make time-sensitive videos. If you're doing a news show, or God forbid, YouTube drama videos, you do have to keep your topics relevant to the current news cycle. And if you make videos about internet trends and fads or new releases in gaming and film, you don't want to miss the boat on those. Although even in those cases, a good video can still work after the fact as a retrospective. But yeah, for most creators, this just isn't something you need to concern yourself with. I used to upload all of my videos at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, because that's when I personally would have been most likely to just be chillin' looking for something interesting to click on. But eventually I stopped caring about it and just started uploading whenever a video was ready, and I didn't see any difference in performance at all. Next in D tier, the algorithm will punish you for taking a break. So in general, no. There's no amount of time you can take off that would trigger some sort of massive downranking of your videos in recommendations. If your audience really likes your videos, they're going to keep sharing them with their friends, and probably even go back and watch some old ones. As an example, at the beginning of the year 2020, I had about the same amount of subscribers as my friend Sam from the YouTube channel Sam Onella Academy. Sam proceeded to take a nearly 3-year-long break, all the while massively diffing me on both subs and views. And this isn't me saying there's anything wrong with the algorithm or anything like that. His audience just really likes his videos and likes to go back and rewatch them. And when he finally did come back after those 3 years, all of his new videos did basically just as well as you would have expected had he never taken a break at all. Bill Wirtz made what I think could be reasonably described as the greatest educational YouTube video of all time. And even though he hasn't posted in years, his channel still pulls plenty of views. If he ever posted another history of blank, I think the internet would go bananas. Now, these channels are, of course, outliers. I don't think everyone can expect that level of audience loyalty. But what I'm getting at is that the performance of good old videos is not negatively impacted by the lack of new videos. Even channels whose videos are highly time sensitive still take breaks from time to time, and they still have an audience when they come back. Now, obviously, you don't want to be too inactive. If you just up and ghost the internet for years at a time, it's not just your audience who's going to notice. YouTube channels are businesses, and like any business, you're going to have competition. If you've left your audience with nothing to watch for years on end, I would expect your competitors to notice and for them to try and emulate your style in order to capture some of your audience. So take breaks when you need to, don't burn yourself out, but never think that success is guaranteed either. Next in D tier, just do this one weird trick. All right, I don't want to stoke drama, so I'm not going to name names, but I do have a bone to pick with, okay, I'm re-recording this bit because after watching it back, I think I started to come off way too heated for no reason. Basically, what I want to communicate is that there's a lot of videos out there that can really just get you barking up the wrong tree if you're not careful, by convincing you that there's a lot of subtle tweaking that you can do to your video's metadata, things like the video tags and the file names and like things you can do with the YouTube Studio editor that would allegedly massively boost your odds of going viral. And I'm sorry, but I do think that that's all just a complete waste of time. I'm not saying that adds zero value at all, but at the end of the day, if your videos are bad, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do like metadata manipulation wise to get people to like them. And if your videos are excellent, frankly, it would be pretty hard to screw it up. Like, it would be legitimately difficult to get people to stop sharing them. And if your videos are mid, you're much better off spending your time learning how to improve your craft than you are learning all these subtle metadata manipulation tricks. You should always prioritize the things that your audience can see, not what YouTube's algorithm can see. Next in D tier, one bad upload can kill your channel. Thankfully, probably not. Again, flip it around. How many times have you, as a viewer, completely written off all of a creator's future work based on one bad video? Probably not too many times, although if you've been around long enough, maybe you can think of one or two. But no, what actually kills channels is a string of uninteresting videos that leads to their audience just not being as excited about their stuff anymore. But yeah, don't stress about singular flops. It's way too much pressure to put on yourself, and literally every YouTuber uploads a stinker every once in a while. And last in D tier, monetization will hurt your YouTube channel. It's crazy. I know a handful of creators who just agonized over the decision to either monetize their videos or do sponsors. They thought their audience would crucify them if they did it, but Patreon wasn't quite making ends meet for them, and so eventually they felt like they had no other choice. And then when they flipped the switch, they got literally zero negative comments about it. And the same is true for sponsors. In fact, oftentimes I see the exact opposite happen, where they'll suddenly get a lot of comments along the lines of like, "Yo, our boy finally made it. Hype." It's an understood milestone in a creator's career, and I think most audiences understand that. I've even heard of creators faking sponsorships because they feel like it gives them more legitimacy to have them than to not. I wouldn't do that. Faking sponsors is also D-tier advice, but so is completely writing them off as selling out. That's it for D-tier. All the rest of the stuff on this list is at least somewhat applicable and definitely won't hurt your channel. In C-tier, we have advice that is potentially useful, but isn't universally applicable. And first in C-tier, this is going to be a controversial one, collabs are a good way to grow your channel. This one's interesting because YouTube Creator Studio actually tells you that this is a good idea. I did a ton of collabs in the early years of my YouTube career, and to be honest, I don't think a single one moved the needle at all. Now, I'm not saying they can't work. They can make for fun and entertaining videos, but for growing an audience, one, they're not that great, and two, you want to build your own audience, not leech from someone else's. That second point isn't some moral judgment or anything. I'm not saying you're not going to have any overlap with other channels' audiences. Of course you will. But I've seen it several times where a creator will do a collaboration and it'll do well and they'll get a ton of new subscribers and views and they'll get all excited and celebrate. But when they upload their next video, it doesn't hit and they might even lose subscribers. And the reason is because those subs weren't made in earnest. They were subbed as a show of support for a different creator and for you as their friend, but not because they actually connected with your content. And that can be really demoralizing. You may have noticed that collabs in general are just not all that common these days on YouTube. And I think this is the reason. They're just not all that effective in the long run. Now, there are other creators who I think do it well, but I think the reason they make it work is that they do cameos or games where it makes sense to involve other creators. My friend Magic the Noah does this amazingly well with his game shows, but even then, after being in multiple videos, I don't think I've ever noticed a spike in subscribers or views. So do the collabs that make sense, but definitely don't force it, and especially don't chase down other YouTubers asking to collab, because it's not even worth it. Next in C tier, censor your speech using euphemistic slang. Look, I'll be honest, I really wanted to put this one in F tier. I find it immensely disrespectful when people use such corny language to discuss serious topics. But I will admit that this is a matter of personal opinion, and that at this point, clearly that type of thing has become pretty firmly ingrained in the online vernacular. I watched a pretty interesting series of videos by a channel called Etymology Nerd, who makes a pretty good case that these words do serve a social function beyond just dodging a platform's censor bots. I don't know, I'm not an ethics philosopher, so I will leave it up to y'all to decide what is and is not appropriate for serious online discussions. But what I do know is that these supposed censor bots do not exist. There are no guidelines saying that you cannot use terms like kill, sex, and yeah, even rape and pedophile in your videos. Now, sure, if you're using those words in a graphic context, that's one thing. But if the context is there, if your video is about those subjects, removing the word doesn't suddenly make your video family friendly. A true crime podcast about vicious, evil murderers is still a true crime podcast about vicious, evil murderers, even if you say unalive instead of kill. So either talk about it or don't. Next in C tier, premieres help your channel grow. Premieres are fine. They can be a cool way to build hype and even result in a bit of bonus revenue from super chats. But do they help you grow? Probably not in a significant way. In fact, some people, myself included, find them to be a bit obnoxious. It's a bit of a buzzkill when you're bored and looking for something to watch, and you see a new notification from your favorite creator, and it's for a premiere that's in 24 hours. Cool. I'd rather you just have told me tomorrow. And if you're late to a premiere, you gotta either wait for it to end or awkwardly try to rewind it. Meanwhile, chat is talking about a totally different part of the video and spoiling stuff. And yeah, premieres are fine, messy, but fine. Next in C tier, you should engage with your audience by doing update videos, Q&A videos, and milestone videos. So on my main channel, TierZoo, I decided very early on that I was going to never do these. So when I was first starting out, I created a list of rules for myself to keep me on track for growth and keep me out of trouble. And the number one rule on that list was to only ever upload exactly the sort of video that I thought my audience had subscribed for. My channel was about looking at the natural world through the lens of gaming, and nothing else. My assumption was my audience did not care who I am. And I do think this rule served me well. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but for a while I was the fastest growing educational channel of all time, and reached 1 million subscribers after only about 18 months. But, of course, I have no control data to compare against, and I know plenty of other channels that have done just fine uploading that style of video alongside their main content. I think it makes more sense to flip it again to the viewer perspective and ask if your favorite channel, or actually let's say not your favorite channel, if a channel that you like but perhaps isn't even in your top 5 uploaded a Q&A video, would you watch that? But I guess this also goes back to one of the earlier points on this list, which is that one bad upload isn't going to sink your channel either. The performance of my first video on this channel certainly proved to me that there can be a ton of value in doing these more personal videos, as I've been able to since connect with more of my audience and fellow creators than ever before. There's clearly merit to both approaches, and I look forward to learning more about how to best make this genre of content. So subscribe if that's something you're interested in. And last in C tier, basically everything you've ever heard about fair use. I wish I had the time and the expertise to try and properly debunk all the misinformation about fair use, but for now, I will just say go watch the Tom Scott copyright video. It's crazy though, in my behind the scenes video, I got a lot of comments saying, why on earth would you pay for stock footage when fair use exists? Look, I do wish some of them charged a bit less, but ultimately I do want an incentive to exist for nature videographers to go shoot interesting videos for me to buy. If it were legal that I could just rip their videos and run it through a watermark remover, that would be cool for a short time, but eventually these nature videographers would just find better uses for their time and film experience. I want to have a good relationship with nature photographers. I want them to be excited to show me the latest cool shots that they got, not just to hide behind some flimsy legal defense while I benefit from their work for free. As with most things, the answer to the question of why does this cost so much is because it's worth it. Maybe not to you, but to someone. All right, first in B tier now. Interested is interesting. So this is a common adage I've heard tossed around in YouTuber circles a lot. I believe it was first popularized by Casey Neistat, but I'm not 100% sure. So while it is true to an extent, I learned the hard way that if you make things too niche, too high concept, people will bounce off of it. Still, passion is by far one of the most important things to showcase in your videos. YouTube is pretty great at showing people videos relevant to their interests. And if you, among all the YouTubers for a given topic, seem like the most passionate of the bunch, you'll be in a pretty good position. And the reverse is also true. If people can tell that you're not all that excited about the thing that you're talking about, they're not going to be excited about it either. Next in B tier, shorts will help your channel grow. So strictly from the perspective of increasing the number of views and subscribers on your YouTube channel, yes, this absolutely will work. In fact, the numbers can be truly staggering, but what can also be staggering is how difficult it can be to convert those shorts viewers into long-form viewers. This is my friend Juliet. She runs a channel called Girl Who Eats Art. It's a shorts-only channel about showcasing edible mosaic artwork. Her videos have a combined 1.5 billion views, and her channel has 1.5 million subscribers. For reference, that is over 3 times as many views as I have across all of my channels, and she's only been doing it for a year and a half. Juliet just uploaded her first long-form video, an 8-minute long video of her touring an art museum and interviewing people. Before I tell you, how many views would you guess that video got? 10,000? 100,000? A million? 431. Less than 0.1% of her subscriber count. So what's going on? Why did her video get so few views? Well, I actually think the answer is pretty simple. While most long-form viewers do watch a few shorts here and there, most short-form viewers never even open the YouTube homepage where long-form videos are shown. I've seen some viral posts going around saying that YouTube Shorts should have just been a separate app. And if you ask me, it basically is. So if the last thing you watched on the YouTube app was a short, the next time you open YouTube on your phone, it'll open directly to the Shorts feed, so you never have to see anything else. Now, if you ask me, it is a bit ridiculous that Shorts are also shown on the YouTube homepage, especially with these tall thumbnails that take up double the real estate and crowd out long-form stuff. But in fairness, on the Smart TV app, which is frankly where long-form creators most prefer their videos to be watched anyway, Shorts usually don't show up there. Anyway, the point is, you can pull insane numbers on your Shorts, hundreds of millions of views, but still struggle to pull even a tiny fraction of a percent of those viewers over to your long-form videos. You really do have to treat them like a separate audience. Still, if the content of your shorts specifically references long-form content that people watching that short might also like, you can see excellent growth across your entire channel via shorts. This is something that I myself am far from mastering, but my friends over at Extra History have been crushing it with this strategy. So yeah, shorts are powerful for growth, but they're easy to overestimate and tough to convert into the audience you actually want. On a similar point, my next piece of advice in B tier is to ask your audience to subscribe during your videos. So there's really no reason not to do this. I do it, all the best creators do it, and we do it because it works. It makes the number go up, and we really like it when the number goes up. The reason I include it now here is because I think it's time to drop the biggest truth nuke of the video, which is that subscribers don't matter very much. I wish they did. A YouTuber's subscriber count is often their biggest point of pride, and it certainly is for me. Hitting 1 million subscribers was one of the biggest milestones of my life. But if you're gonna ask your audience to do something, you know what's better than asking them to click the "I'd like to see more of this in the future" button? Getting them to watch more of your videos right away. In the same amount of time that it takes to ask your audience to click the red button and tap the bell, you could just suggest another video to them that they might be interested in. Spending more time on your channel right away is a lot stronger of a positive signal to the algorithm than just tapping a button. Subscribers are great, don't get me wrong, but it's easy to over-prioritize growing that number rather than growing your channel's actual reach. Next in B tier, focus on making sure your click-through rate is as high as possible. This is another number that creators often over-prioritize, and it can be even more misleading. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a fellow creator complaining on Twitter that they must be shadow banned, because with the CTR as high as theirs, surely YouTube should be pushing their video to the masses. The problem is, while yes, CTR does scale directly with how interesting a video's title and thumbnail are, it scales inversely with how many impressions a video is getting. CTR is always going to start high and decline as your video spreads. So if you're looking at your analytics and thinking, I don't get it, my CTR is crazy high, YouTube says this one's clearly a banger, so why is it not being shown to the masses? Unfortunately, that's kind of similar to saying, like, I've gone on so many first dates, clearly I'm hot stuff. So paying attention to CTR used to be more important for creators because you could take a dead video and then change up the thumbnail and then look at the real-time CTR data that YouTube would give you, and you could look for a change. If the change swung positive, that was a good thing. That was a really good signal. Now, though, you could just use YouTube's A/B testing feature to do the same thing. So there's not really a ton of reason to pay super close attention to CTR. Now, looking at your real-time CTR can be useful for title changes, because right now, most people can only do it with their thumbnails. But there is a title A/B testing feature in beta, so you'll get it eventually. Last in B tier, you should get your audience to sign up for a newsletter. This is a strategy I hadn't even heard of until recently, but apparently a lot of really successful creators do it. So the basic idea is pretty simple. Kind of like what I was saying before, subscribers don't necessarily mean that much anymore. Just because someone is subscribed doesn't mean they're for sure going to get a notification for your next video. So instead of relying on YouTube to push your video out, you could just ask your most loyal fans to join a mailing list so that you have total control over that connection to your audience. And this does work. Data shows that the industry average for opening these emails is about 20%, which is like 10 times higher than the average rate that YouTube viewers click on push notifications, so it is a pretty reliable way to reach your audience. The really clever YouTubers will send out not just their own videos, but a whole curated list of the best videos that they've seen over the past few days or weeks. That way, their video becomes part of a pretty concrete pattern of co-watching, and anyone who organically encounters one of the other videos in their newsletter will have a much higher chance of seeing their video next. So, pretty clever stuff. The only drawback is, believe it or not, sending a bunch of emails can get pretty expensive pretty quickly, like potentially several $1,000s a year. So definitely useful, but not something to worry about unless you're already an established creator. All right, we're leaving the mid-tier now. So look, I'm not trying to be a YouTube guru or anything like that. I'm not going to promise that these tips are like guaranteed to grow your channel and propel your career to new heights and make you rich and famous overnight. But I do think everything from here on out is genuinely great advice that I would give to anyone in the industry, both new and old creators alike. First, in A tier, you should use the A/B thumbnail testing feature. So this just works, pure and simple. If you're not A/B testing your thumbnails, you're almost certainly leaving views on the table. Now, it is a lot of extra work to create 3 thumbnails instead of just 1, but I've seen some truly explosive growth on old videos after successfully finding a new winning thumbnail. I'm talking like doubling or tripling the amount of views on the video. There's also a title A/B testing feature in beta right now, which opens up even more possibilities. I don't have a ton more to say about this one. It just genuinely is a really powerful tool. Next in A tier, you should translate your videos into multiple languages. So pretty much every creator that does this that I've talked to has said that it basically doubled their revenue for very little extra effort. Translated subtitles are good, but if possible, what you really want to do is find someone who can provide a translated audio track too. The multi-language audio track feature is really powerful and auto-plays the appropriate language based on viewer's location, if the translation exists. I really wanted to make this work for Tierzoo, but because my videos are so jargon heavy, unless I find someone who specifically knows like the ins and outs of gamer culture in that language, the translations just don't capture the same gaming connotations that they do in English. So yeah, it's tough. And finding someone who can do that is difficult. People like that are hard to find and expensive, but if you'd like to see TierZoo brought to your local language, pledging to my Patreon would help me get that off the ground. All right, and finally, S tier advice. So for advice in the highest tier, I decided to go with more nebulous, vibes-based sorts of things, because at the end of the day, I really do believe that having the right mindset and having the right creative ambition will really always trump any sort of back-end optimizations or analytics tricks. First in S tier, we have the 80% rule. This is advice that Hank Green posted to YouTube around the time that I was just starting my career here, and I never forgot it. The idea is simple.
80%. Everything creative I do my best to get it 80% of the way to as good as I can make it and go no further. I just don't try to get it to 100%.
Now, of course, I've heard tons of similar proverbs to this, you know, like don't let perfect be the enemy of good, done is better than perfect, that sort of thing. But I don't know, something about the way that Hank puts it, plus his track record with starting and finishing a huge variety of massively successful projects, made this one stick differently. I'm sure there's plenty of fields that this sort of advice can apply to, but I think us YouTubers really need to hear it more than most, because we really like to stress a lot about the finer details of things and tend to have a pretty well-defined picture of what we want a video to end up looking like. And I think for YouTubers like myself, who upload somewhat infrequently and spend a lot of time per video, the biggest risk is not that we make a bad video. The biggest risk is that we don't make a video at all. We either spend way too long polishing something that's already perfectly fine, or we get halfway through a project and realize it's not quite turning out the way we liked it, and so we just start over. It's tough because one of the pieces of advice that I see passed around a lot in creative circles is just make it exist first, you can make it good later. But on YouTube, once you publish a video, it's out there. You can't change it. You just have to let it ride, mistakes and all. And even with that being said, the 80% rule is great advice. And the last advice on this tier list, the algorithm is the audience. Basically the idea that every time you would normally use the word algorithm, swap in audience. So instead of the algorithm likes this thumbnail more than that one, you think the audience likes this thumbnail more than that one. And instead of thinking the algorithm isn't pushing this video, you think the audience isn't pushing this video. This is advice that Todd Beaupre, head of search and discovery at YouTube, aka the guy that leads the team that manages and designs the YouTube algorithm, says every chance that he gets. I've kind of been trying to condition you guys to think this way over the course of this video, by frequently asking you to re-examine all the pieces of advice through the lens of an audience member rather than the perspective of a creator. The things that matter to the algorithm are the things that matter to the audience, and if something doesn't matter to the audience, it's probably not worth fussing about for the algorithm's sake either. Personally, the things that determine whether or not I want to click on a video are, does it look interesting? Is it by a creator who I really like? Does it look like it's about something that I've already watched another video about? Do I have time to watch something that's that length? If the thumbnail looks like a still frame from a video, do I want to see the rest of that video? And that sort of thing. There have been a lot of videos on YouTube lately from YouTubers complaining about low views and speculating about possible algorithm changes that are affecting them. And in fairness, the video that I posted a few weeks ago was also about challenges that I was facing as a creator. But I hope the takeaway from that video was that I don't believe that there's any nefarious YouTube suppression going on, but that the audience is just changing. And yes, I did hear also about the potential ad block shenanigans, and those sorts of things do happen from time to time. But as a creator, the advice that I would give is that you still have to just prioritize focusing on the things that you can control. What viewers want is a moving target, and sometimes strategies and formats that used to crush it suddenly don't work as well anymore. I apologize if the S tier section came off as a bit disappointing. I get that just make good videos doesn't really feel actionable. And again, I'm not trying to be a YouTube guru or anything like that. I'm just sharing my opinion as a creator. I hope this video helps you avoid red herring advice and helps you focus on what really matters. And that's the tier list. I'm really curious how this video does because I have no idea if people actually want to just hear me ramble about things or if the success of the first video was an anomaly. I know I kind of baited people into thinking I was maybe about to retire with a title and thumbnail like that, and I know that's not a move I can pull twice, so I'd be surprised if a video like this does anywhere near as well. I promise the next video on this channel will not be about the YouTube meta. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you'd like to help me fund an indie game dev studio, consider pledging to my Patreon, because we've got some cool things cooking.